Hello, I'm Gary Schotten. I'm a part of Inspiring Better Business. Today I'm going to talk about the subject, no consequences. And in that, I'm going to discuss things we need to do in accomplishing certain tasks on time and delegating responsibility and holding people accountable to what needs to be done in a timely manner. And what do you do when you have that doesn't happen? What do you actually do in the form of consequences for failing to complete a task? Now, I've got to tell you that many of the topics I speak about, I feel like I have a lot of experience and I've gained a lot of success in, but this is not one of those. I struggle with this, and we struggle as a company with this. And so the easiest thing we could do is make an analogy here of raising our children. Now, my children are quite adults, have been adults and married 20 years in many cases. And I can think back when they were teenagers and we're giving them some freedom, and you think typically of the consequences of not getting your work done on time. You might need to give up TV time, or give the consequences of coming in too late, or not calling as a youngster and telling us where they were. There usually was some kind of consequences that they understood that they need to do something, or something's going to happen in the way of either punishment or discipline. I will say that we did have very few rules in our household. We would function quite well. I found early on that if I started listing these exact consequences of this rule fits with this offense, that pretty soon that all comes apart because there's always something I didn't think about. So I usually left the rules off. I just made sure they clearly understood that there would be some consequences if they didn't obey. Now, we are not dealing with children at work. Sometimes you might think that and you might feel that, but as soon as you start dealing with your workforce as if they're small children, you're going to find another big problem. So I don't suggest that. I think it's good for us to say that we're trying to hit the target. The target would be all of your workers. We have 51 workers at this moment. We've had as many as 65 and 70. A previous business, I had between 50 and 75 regularly. And we would try to make clear the expectations of here's when starting time for the shift is, and when we should deal with certain things, and make it clear, very neutral guidelines for things. But again, I'm not one to make a long list of you offend here, then this is going to be the discipline in that. I like to leave that to chance. Not loose, but I like to be able to say, you knew there would be a consequence, and this is what it is. I don't like to create an environment where we're like the police and we're documenting this is the third time you've been late, the fourth time you've been late, the fifth time you're late. After the sixth time you're late, then you're going to do this and this. I think we're dealing with people as children, although some businesses handle it that way, I understand. I think it's nice to have a target, though. We want people to come to work, halfway enjoy their work. We try to make that true. Accomplish the task on schedule, on time, under budget, and then go home with a degree of success for the day and success for the week. Now, in the United States, when we talk about disciplining people, we do have to keep in mind there's some legal aspects of all disciplining. If I was to just randomly fire someone with no reason at all, or no reason, then I would probably be at risk of that person calling me on that and maybe yelling or claiming the word discrimination for some reason, or unfairness in the way I've done it. So we try to cover things like if someone's safe, they must be safe, or there would be some consequences. We don't say what those are. If someone is repeatedly making scrap parts or not accomplishing the expectation at their pay, yes, there will be something that we're going to discuss and make adjustments. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But in the end of the day, we have to be careful about legal aspects. In my case, I'm an openly Christian boss and owner and leader, but on regular occasions, almost any time that we have a public meeting, we record that, just like I'm recording this. And just like our last public meeting, I made a statement again to the effect that I personally happen to have some preferences along this line, but never would we give someone advantage or a pay increase or advancement because they happen to agree with my personal favorite aspects in life, in this case my Christian stand, but they must earn that. In fact, probably we are harder on those that agree with us. We want to make sure that we're not being unfair, favoring someone because of their beliefs. Now, we also have some best practices through the years. I can't say that we're doing that well here. I did it some in my previous business. It was a trucking company. That these best practices for me, a lot of times, were time off from work. In other words, if someone just randomly didn't show up for work and they knew they should have called in or given us notice, and I kind of need them, of course, the next day I could just fire them and say, well, you didn't call me yesterday, so you're fired. Well, we're not quite that hard. But it isn't out of line to say when they show up the next day, you know, you weren't here yesterday and you didn't let me know that you're not going to be here yesterday. So maybe I don't need you today, and so you just go ahead and take this day off and report tomorrow. Now we're kind of leveling balancing the playing field here a little bit. You're going to show disrespect to me for not showing up and working a day without calling in, let me know, getting permission, then I'm going to correspond, and not in a negative way, but a truthful way to say, you better think about this, because any day I want, I could say I don't need you. I didn't actually fire you. And if you do that enough, several times, then that person will probably get the hint, and they have plenty of time to look for another job if they have all day with no pay, with no work. So those are some ideas. We also try to approach it from a standpoint of a bonus. That allows some of our lead people to kind of work in our behalf from the middle of the pack. Currently, we have a bonus system where it's based on total sales, and we had two of our senior workers stand up in the middle of the meeting and just echo our feelings. Listen, we've got to work together and get the revenue up because it's good for everyone and it's good for our bonus. If you follow me, there's a few people that you could say a little slackguards in work, they're not diligent at work, and if we create a bonus, in our case, we don't pot shot and give some people this amount of bonus and another person this bonus. We give everyone the same amount. If it's $20 for that month, they get $20. If it's $200, they get $200. Every single one gets $200 that month. We had a situation back in 2011 and 12, so I gave consistently 1 month a $500 bonus for everyone, equally $500 that was with our company at that time. There's 65 workers, do the math. And then the next month it was $325, and the month after that was $500 again. Well, we're making good business. I have the money to do that. And that caused those that are more dedicated, if you want to say, to kind of lead from the middle of the pack and encourage those that were backing off and not pulling their weight, because they all wanted to get to that bonus section. Well, these are things that I hope are helpful. The idea of there's no consequences for showing up late or showing up not at all or consistently making bad parts. You know that some people have just a desire to make a good part, desire to please you. And if something goes bad or wrong or unexpected, they are harder on themselves than we are on them. So we've got to take that into account. Not everyone is disciplined, or the consequences could always be the same. Not discriminating, but just dealing with your people to get the most out of them. If we do it right, the worker leaves our company or works for our company for years and years, but they have gained some good business skills as a worker working for us. That's part of our objective. Thanks for being a part of Inspiring Better Business.